Awesome. Okay, so in the last two sessions, we are sort of going through the Museum of Fights. We're going through kind of four classic disagreements that people have. And the first one is called the bomb drop, all right? And if you remember the first session, these are going to kind of review them. The things that I talked about are going to revisit us in these last sessions. So this one has to do with the behavior of criticism. And what we learned in the first session was 95% of the time, the way that a conversation begins determines how it's going to end. So if we start with a harsh startup, we can predict what kind of outcome we're going to have here. So with a harsh startup, usually we begin with some kind of criticism. We describe the other person instead of ourselves. This is all your fault, blah, 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 blah. And if we're really doing a good job, we pile up old resentments we've been hoarding, and Gottman will call this kitchen sinking. So I'll explain what this is all about. But instead of saying, I'm annoyed with you because you didn't take the garbage out and I asked you to take the garbage out, or the garbage truck came and so our garbage didn't go, you tell the person about 10 things that went wrong last week. That's kitchen sinking, all right? Okay, an example. This sounds like something I throw out all the time, but this is Gottman. You never pick up your socks. You probably forgot to pick up the dry cleaning. You haven't even asked me how I was today. And you know what else? You're a terrible parent. Okay, so really the issue was the socks, but okay, it all comes out. So this is a classic harsh startup. What's wrong with this? Well, first of all, criticism is never productive. So Gottman's going to say we should never criticize. Now that is not the same as saying we don't bring up issues. You might have an issue, it's okay to bring it up. It's how you bring it up. But criticism isn't productive. And what distinguishes criticism from productive complaint is the form of an attack on your partner's core character or personality. We make a judgment on the other person. So we're not pointing out a problem with the situation at hand. We're pointing out a problem with the person themselves. All right? Some examples. Why do you have to be such a slob? Can't you clean up after yourself for once? So that would be a criticism. A complaint would be, there's a bunch of dirty laundry on the floor. Would you mind picking it up before we go to bed? Assuming it's the other person's laundry. So one of them is a criticism, one of them is a complaint, and the way that they're phrased is the difference between them. By the way, Gottman says there's no such thing as constructive criticism. So he just doesn't like, if it's criticism, it's bad, but there is still a way to bring up issues and things like that. Number two, you describe your partner instead of yourself. Especially when emotions are running high, we often kick off arguments pointing out everything the other person is doing wrong. So we're angry about something, but we just kind of dump the whole thing. When we come into these conversations, we have an underlying belief that our perspective is completely valid and the other partner is completely at fault. I don't know if you've had this happen, but you're driving along down the road. There's a particularly slow car in front of you. Maybe they're going 10 or 15 miles an hour under the speed limit, and you're just like, what's wrong with you, little red car? How come you're going so slow? And then you go around a corner, and you notice that in front of the red car is a blue car, and it has nothing to do with the red car in front of you. It's actually the blue car that's at fault. And sometimes this happens to us in our life, so we're sure that the way we see it in the moment is this is right and you're wrong, and then we get a little bit more information and we're like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so if we assume we're right, they're wrong, it doesn't go well. And a classic in this, I don't know who told us this years ago, but my wife and I banned the use of these words, always and never. You always do this. You never do that. When we say that, it's almost always wrong. Okay? Even if someone most of the time leaves their socks on the floor, they don't always leave their socks on the floor. And if we say that to them, they're going to be triggered. No, that's not true. So as much as possible, avoid the words always and never. So an example, describing your partner, you always leave your clothes strewn all over the bedroom. Why can't you just put your clothes in the hamper? It takes 10 seconds. Describing yourself, a different way of answering, it really stresses me out when the bedroom is messy. Could you try to remember to toss your stuff in the hamper instead? Now that might sound very subtle, the difference between those, but if you analyze it, the first one will probably trigger the other person, the second one won't. Then this problem of kitchen sinking. So instead of focusing on one issue, the issue at hand, we throw a bunch of unresolved complaints at the other person. The mindset becomes, well, since we're already arguing, I might as well bring up a few more things, okay? Not a good idea. And sometimes it happens, he says, because the original complaint doesn't seem to justify the level of anger. We're upset, we don't know why we're upset, and so, well, there must be more, so I'll throw a bunch more things at you. And we do that to try to validate how we're feeling. Examples of kitchen sinking. I see there are clothes all over the bedroom again. It's a total mess in here. The car is trashed and you didn't clean up the garage last weekend like you said, and you even forgot Valentine's Day. You never think about me at all. Oh, I can tell the way that evening is going to go right now. And his answer is, just take care of one dish, okay? Don't fill the sink with dishes. Deal with the one that is the problem in the moment and think about how you do this. So the moral of the story is don't let complaints and frustrations pile up. At the end, I'm going to give you another fun little inventory. I didn't make this one up this time, but it's called a resentment inventory. So you get to do this and then score yourself, and just to check whether, on the whole, there's a lot of resentment building up in the relationship. So bottling them up leads later to harsh, emotionally charged confrontations. So don't store up complaints and resentments. From a Christian point of view, Jesus tells us that we need to forgive. And if we didn't get the fine print, he says, if you do not forgive, you will not be forgiven. That's pretty heavy. All right? So we're called to forgive. And yes, I could give a whole 4-night course on forgiveness. There's all kinds of issues, how it works and what is and isn't and all kinds of things. But bottom line, we need to forgive and therefore not hold on to resentment. Okay, another common mistake. If you were to ask yourself, what's the ideal way to bring up a concern with your partner? Chances are you wouldn't say, storm in and point fingers. And we know that, and yet, mysteriously, we find ourselves doing that from time to time. So I've done it. I know I've done it, okay? And we just don't think. And at least in my case, after I've done it, I think, you are such a dummy. You know exactly how this works. Why did you do that? It didn't go well. Okay, I guess I know why. All right? So if we're irritated and resentful and we come in hot, things are not going to go well. So why do we do this? Some of us have simply never learned a different way to begin a conversation like this. We haven't had anyone model this to us. Maybe our family background, people were doing this all the time, or our friends, whatever. And so somehow it might be our default approach, and it's become a deeply rooted habit that kind of habit we call a vice. Um, and we just might not even be aware that we're doing it. So hopefully, as we begin to reflect on this, we might come to a deeper understanding. So what we need to do is open up a place for conversation with our partner so we can bring up our concerns and not cause the other person to be triggered and defend themselves. We want to move from a place of attack and defense into a place where we have connection, understanding. If we notice that the tone is turning negative, we can think about this. Basically, we need to build positivity into these conversations. So if those examples were bad, then how do we bring up a good example? And so we need to bring them up in a positive way, and there's a very specific way of doing this. There's all kinds of research on this. And we need to do so without laying blame, without criticism, and without contempt. So we need those qualities to be in our response. And if we do this, the success rate of a positive outcome will be much, much higher. So getting off on the right foot. So if there's a problem, we need to remember that we're not necessarily trying to fix the problem, especially if it's a perpetual problem. Our goal would not be to solve deep-seated differences. We just maybe have an issue. There's socks on the floor. This is bothering me. Okay, that's not a deep-seated issue. So as you get into this, the role of partner one is to try to bring the issue up gently. So 95% of the time, the way we start, and we gave you a little frame for that, and I'm going to unpack that in a minute. Partner two, your role is to listen as carefully and attentively as possible to the viewpoint of partner one. And then after you've done this for a while, you can switch roles, but you want to try to carefully listen to each other. Partner two can voice their position, partner one listens, and in turn tries to understand partner one. So, what are the rules for listening? First of all, we want to listen attentively. So, when we're doing this, we want to set aside our own perspective and try to echo back parts of what the other person said to show that we're truly listening to them. So he gives an example. So you felt really let down when I texted you I had to stay late at work instead of coming to the party. So he's heard that from the other person. He says that back. Then if we're not understanding, we can ask open-ended questions trying to clarify. Now, the questions, we're not interrogating the other person. We're just asking questions if we don't understand. So help me understand what you mean by this, or why do you feel that way? And he gives this example. Why do you think this felt especially upsetting tonight? It didn't seem to affect you this way before. So this is a surprising reaction. Tell me why you felt that way tonight. Then reflect the issue back until your partner feels fully understood. If your first attempt at summarizing what they said misses the mark, keep asking questions, adjust it until they agree. So what I'm hearing is that you've been feeling like we're not a priority because of how much I've been working. Does that sound right? Okay. Offer validation by putting yourself into your partner's shoes and showing empathy, even if you don't necessarily agree with their point of view. So they may have said something to you and you're like, I don't believe that. I don't get that at all. That's okay. Put that on a shelf somewhere. Put it in brackets. Your job right now is just to validate what they said. Yeah, I can see why you feel that way. I've had I had to cancel a lot lately, and that would be disappointing. That makes sense. Now, maybe the guy is like, the boss is going to fire me if I don't do this, and do you realize how important this is? No, not the time for that conversation. You're simply going to say, I can see how this would make you feel, and I see what's going on here. This is very important. Persuasion comes afterwards. No matter what conflict style, it's easy to fall into the trap of trying to persuade the other person before you fully embrace the issue. So you want to avoid that impulse. So, maybe this guy feels, well, this is unfair. There's all these reasons why I had to act this way. Leave it alone. Don't try to persuade at this point. Just listen. The priority is to understand each other's perspective, nothing more. Understanding must come first. Persuasion comes afterwards. And remember, we're only human. We're going to make mistakes. We won't always handle conflict well. It will be emotional. It will be messy. The goal isn't perfection, but we can recognize our slip-ups. We can make a quick repair. So if I was to launch into something that was a harsh startup criticism, I could say to the person, if I recognized it, look, this was obviously the wrong time to bring this up, and I didn't mean to bring it up that way. I'm so sorry. That was probably a very upsetting way to bring this up. Can we talk about it later? But that would be a repair attempt in the midst of making a mistake. And I made sure this was okay. My wife and I still make these kind of mistakes in our arguments together. We are far from perfect. We're still learning about this stuff. But I have found this very, very helpful. Some of these tools have really made a difference when we get into a conflict. Okay, here's the script for a softened startup. And he warns us that, of course, you're going to have to, customize this to your own situation, your own personality. But the essential formula looks like this. I feel really stressed out by how messy this bedroom is. I need your help cleaning it up. Okay, so if we use this formula, we talk about our feelings, then we state the problem. So this saying that we can't criticize doesn't mean we can't bring up issues. We state the problem, and then we state our positive need. It would make me so much less stressed if this was the answer. And it could be about anything. Paying the bills, picking up the socks, being on time to pick the kids up from school, whatever. All right? So let's look at some of his examples here. Here's a harsh startup. You overspent again. When are you going to stop being so irresponsible with our money? Softened. I feel really stressed about our budget this month. It looks like we're going to be short again. Can we sit down together and plan how to cut some of our expenses? You see how that includes all those parts? Doesn't let go of the issue. There's an issue. But it finds a different way to approach it. You're going out again? Great. I'll just sit home alone again. How fun for me. Okay? Ouch. Hey, listen, I need to talk to you about something. I keep thinking about last week when you went out with friends instead of coming home for dinner. I know I said it was okay, but for some reason, it's still bothering me. I just kind of feel rejected and lonely. Maybe it's because we haven't had much one-on-one time together lately. Could you come home tonight right after work? I miss you. All right? So that sounds, number one, would cause a very bad evening. Number two, might cause a very good evening. All right? So you can see how this works. You're trying to, find a way to still bring up your need, but in a positive way. So here's some reminders about being a good listener. Hold off on sharing your own perspective and focus solely on listening. If something isn't clear, ask questions, but only to deepen your understanding. Reflect back your partner's feelings, the issue, and what they need. So you're listening for what their feeling is, what the issue is they're trying to bring up, and then what the need is that they have. And you want to check that they actually feel understood. All right? Josh, could you do me a favor and close that door over there? Thank you. I feel like I'm in high school. So, will a softened startup look different across different conflict styles? So, a volatile person is going to have more intensity and passion. An avoidant partner is likely to understate and speak more tentatively. That previous example of the person who is being sarcastic because they wanted more time with their spouse, I would guess that was an avoidant person. Now the answer was a good answer, so that fixed the problem. And validators are probably good at trying to work things through, but their problem is they quickly shift to problem-solving mode. They try to fix things, all right? And if you do that, you're going to miss the feeling, and you probably hear the need and try to solve it, but you're not really getting to the depth of it. An example of volatile. Seriously, you haven't paid this? I can't believe I ended up with the most irresponsible person ever. Softened. I'm feeling really overwhelmed about our finances. We're behind on bills again, and I really need us to stick to what we agreed. Can we figure out a solution together? Avoidant. The bills are here again, or they might actually say nothing and just feel anxious and stressed because they're trying to avoid the problem. I'm feeling a bit uneasy seeing the bills still here. I'm happy to take care of them if that helps, or would you prefer to handle it? So they have to speak up. Validating. You still haven't paid the bills. Do you realize you're ruining our credit? I'm feeling frustrated. The bills aren't paid on time. It could really impact our credit. We'd agreed that you'd handle the bills while I took care of doctor's appointments, remember? How about I take over bedtime with the kids tonight so you have a chance to take care of them? Oh, that sounds just like a validator. Okay, so he found a nice solution, but he also found a different way to say it. What about if the conflict styles don't match? So the signals, then it's easier for them to get lost or misread. An avoidant partner might still experience a volatile partner's softened startup as too intense, simply because of the emotional energy, even if the soft startup follows all the right guidelines. So I've met couples where the wife said to the husband, you keep yelling at me. And he's like, I don't yell at you. But if he got excited and raised his voice just ever so slightly, I don't know if an objective listener would say he was yelling, but they're so sensitive to it that to them, that sounds like yelling. It doesn't mean they're wrong, it just means they're very sensitive, and that person would have to be very careful how they did this. Regardless of the style, you need to pause if you start feeling defensive or attacked and ask yourself, is there actual contempt, blame, or criticism in what I'm hearing? So if you're kind of hearing the four horsemen or something's going on, then something has gone amiss. Some people naturally use more emotional language, but if both partners are intentional about avoiding blame and criticism, a softened startup can be effective. Okay, another style is the flood. And for this one, I wanted to introduce with a live little example here. It's going to be on the gray colored sheet that you have. This is a little vignette about a couple, Nora and Robbie. So here's the introduction. Nora and Robbie, a successful black couple in their 40s, are college sweethearts, juggling demanding careers and the chaos of parenting two teenagers. Although their children are growing up, mornings remain hectic. Getting them ready for school feels like managing toddlers. On a particularly tough morning, Nora is seriously ill. As a corporate counsel at a major tech firm, she has a crucial deal to close soon. But now she's battling a fever, her body aches, and a pounding headache. A COVID test reads negative, though she suspects it's too early for accuracy. Normally, she preps breakfast basics for the kids before they wake. Instant oatmeal, milk, sliced bananas, but today she feels utterly drained. Robbie, though not sick, is worn out from a weekend of heavy deck construction, aiming to finish before rainy weather sets in. Despite his fatigue, when Nora confesses how terrible she feels, Robbie gently tells her to sleep in and takes over the morning routine. Nora gratefully sinks back into bed and drifts off to much-needed rest. Later, she wakes to find Robbie checking on her, a quiet act of love in a busy, overextended household where support and teamwork are essential. Now, things go wrong. Robbie?
Hey, I'm heading out. Just want to let you know that it's already 7:40. The kids will be late to school if you don't leave in the next 5.
Oh, I thought you were taking the kids.
I can't, baby. I'll be late. Their school's in the opposite direction. I gotta go.
Honey, I'm really sick. Can't you just deal with this for once?
For once? Hang on. I just got up early and did your job. Now I'm the bad guy? You don't seem that sick. I think you can manage a 10-minute drive.
How do you know how sick I am? I feel terrible. I think it might be COVID.
Okay, well, I assumed it was just a cold. I'm sorry.
No, it's worse. And why aren't you being nicer to me? I'm always nice to you. I do stuff for you all the time.
Nora, what the hell do you think I've been doing for the past 3 weeks while you've been working on this deal? I left work early 3 times last week alone. I've been picking up all the slack around here.
Oh, God forbid you pick up some slack for a few weeks. Do you know how many years I picked up the slack for you?
Excuse me?
You heard me.
I can't believe you would say that to me after everything I do for you and the kids.
Oh, don't give me that crap. You always act like you're doing me some huge favor just for doing your share. Like you're some hero because you parented your kids or cleaned a toilet. Grow up, Robbie.
And Robbie abruptly leaves, slamming the door. So, what went wrong here? The conversation began constructively. Oops. I don't know how we got Stan in there. Robbie checking in on the recurring issue. Nora is clearly expressing a need. Both are healthy behaviors. However, things quickly deteriorate. A pattern emerges where criticism or contempt from one or both partners triggers defensiveness and emotional flooding. Attempts to repair are missed, leading to fast escalation, the emotional damaging exchanges. Both arguments end in harsh accusations, becoming regrettable incidents that leave emotional wounds. These couples need to intentionally process and repair the damage in order to move forward. Okay, so flooding is a particular physiological thing that happens in the midst of some kind of disagreement where we can go to 0 to 60 in a very short amount of time, and the situation turns very dark. All right, let's have a look at flooding. So, imagine an all too familiar moment. A conversation with your partner starts to take a turn. By the way, at the end of this, he says, it happens to 97% of couples. All right, so this is like probably the most common thing that happens. Maybe it's about someone overdrawing a checking account. Maybe it's what to make for dinner. Maybe it's something big, like whether to move to the suburbs of Timbuktu. Whatever the topic, and even if you begin the conversation gently, things, I might say, mysteriously start to heat up. So, suddenly you feel misunderstood, criticized, cornered, maybe even furious. Your body reacts. A rush of heat, sweaty palms, your heart races, pounding in your ears, your chest tightens, your mind spins. You can't focus on what your partner is saying. Instead, all you can think is, I can't handle this. How do I escape? I'm so over this. So maybe you snap and you say something sharp, escalating the tension, or maybe you dig in, defensive and rigid, ready to deflect every blow. And there's no room to reflect or speak thoughtfully. You're just bracing yourself. Or perhaps you shut down entirely. What's the point in talking? You retreat into silence, you turn away, ignore your partner altogether. You just need this to stop. So one thing that I found surprising about this, previously I had thought that the idea of flooding only related to people that shut down, and that's not the case. That is flooding, but flooding happens across the board. It manifests differently. So some people stonewall, other people don't. So the last one, of course, is stonewalling. You put up an emotional wall to protect yourself, and you shut down to show disapproval and so forth. We talked about this on the very first time that we met. Okay, so what is it? When a conflict becomes overwhelming, our nervous system is triggered by negativity from our partner, and our brain becomes emotionally hijacked. The physical response is almost instant. So I don't know if you remember that first little vignette I shared, but they actually had the AI running, and the guy's heart rate in the matter of seconds went to like 120, 130. So it can go as high as 195, by the way. And this sudden surge activates adrenal glands, flooding the body with stress hormones. It's like prey sensing danger. We shift into survival mode. Our body goes into its primal fight, flight, or freeze type of response. At this point, our thoughts and reactions are driven more by a rush of cortisol and adrenaline than by logic or empathy. In essence, our body reacts as if we're running from a predator. All right? So, even if we begin with a soft startup, as the conflict unfolds, we can face constant decision points where we can lead to flooding. So, do we listen to the other person, or do we jump in and say something? And what do we say? Do we focus on our own experience, or do we highlight our partner's behavior? And what tone do we choose? So notice even sarcasm, mean-spirited humor, these could also trigger it. A harsh startup, which we're not talking about right now, but it can set off a negative tone at the onset with criticism and contempt and turn the conversation towards flooding. But very often we slip into a few kind of familiar reactive patterns. We fall into attack and defend pattern. Our partner starts to feel like the enemy. Oh yeah? Well, you, all right? We shut down and pull away. Our partner starts to feel like a stranger. When we're stuck in these extremes, real connection breaks down. There's no more listening, no curiosity, no room to explore what's truly driving the conflict, which most often is some deeper feeling, need, something about the person. And even if one person tries to reach out or offer a compromise, a repair attempt, the other may not be able to recognize it because they're so triggered by this flooding. What's the signs of flooding? We might grind our teeth together. Our jaw becomes tight or achy. We might actually feel hot or sweat. Our face turns red. You feel like you've been kicked in the gut. Muscles tighten. You're not relaxed. Your eyes narrow. He said Clint Eastwood when he's sizing someone up. That's funny. Our heart begins to race. Our stomach feels queasy. Our mind is spinning. So we're having trouble thinking. So these are all just physiological responses that happen when we're feeling flooded. So you have a handout there. Where is it here? Yes. No. Did I not print it? I don't think I printed that. Oh, here. Yeah, it is. I think it's this. So, no, I didn't print that. I'm sorry. So let me back this up. Here are the signs of flooding. But think through your own experience of what it feels like when you feel flooded. And can you identify with any of these kinds of feelings or behaviors where you suddenly just feel something's gone wrong and these kinds of things are happening in your body? Like I said, 97% of couples experience this. Everyone experiences it differently, by the way, and it's also influenced by your style of conflict. Okay, oops, wrong way. So, the reason I bring that up is the signals are very important. If you start to feel flooded and you're able to do something right away, you will prevent hours of conflict from happening. If you don't sense it's happening, you have the conversation that couple had in the morning. So Nora and Robbie didn't recognize what was happening, and they spiraled into this conversation that I'm sure they regretted. So it's very important to try to intervene right away in order to avoid escalating to a higher conflict. It shows up in different ways: behavior, intensity, timing. And there's two different things that can happen. Some people, when they're flooded, lash out, criticize, and attack. That seemed to be more what Nora and Robbie were doing. And others go inward, shut down, and stonewall. So flooding, this was kind of an insight for me that a blast of criticizing behavior or lashing out could actually be a result of flooding. It's not just bad manners, it's physiological. Okay, what do? So you've noticed that flooding's happening. Hopefully you've noticed it early. Very first thing you do is take a break. And when I talk to couples in formation, I think that's about all I said to them. Take a break, all right? Gottman's going to have a few pages of extra help on what to do here that are very, very helpful. So yes, take a break, but what's this look like? So the minute you sense early warning signs, stop the discussion and ask to take a break. Guidelines. Communicate that you need to take it. So you have to say, this is getting really intense. I would like to take a break. I've done this wrong before. I've gotten upset and just walked out of the room. What does that communicate? We're still taking a break. I chose it. But I didn't say, hey, I'm getting really upset. This is really intense. Can we just take a break? It makes a difference to actually say that out loud. Explain that you're feeling overwhelmed. You need time to calm down. Share where you'll be oops, I think I failed on that one too, and when you'll return to finish the conversation. Try saying something like, honey, I'm feeling really stressed right now. I don't want to say anything hurtful. I'm going to step out for a short walk. I'll be back in about 30 minutes so we can continue our talk. You see all the components there? So it's fine. I'm taking the dog for a walk. We're going to the park. I'll be back in 30 minutes, but at least they know what's going on. He recommends that you get out of visual range of your partner. Don't stay where you can see them. If you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, staying in visual range of your partner will continue your feelings. Getting out of their sight will help you. Do something calming that shifts your focus away from the conflict. You need space, not just physically, but mentally, to have a break. The goal isn't to dwell on what happened or replay or ruminate on the fight. If you do this, you will not de-stress. So if you go away and keep thinking about the conflict and planning your next attack and, building your case before the judge, no, you're just going to be continuing to be all stressed out. You need to go and calm down. Instead, take the dog for a walk, listen to a podcast, whatever you do, go do something that is emotionally self-soothing. Eat some chocolate. I don't know. It works for dementors. All right. And then don't forget to come back. Okay? So there's a certain type, especially stonewallers, if they get off the hook, they won't want to come back. So you've agreed that you're going to come back, take the break, and return at the time you said you would and give it another shot. He says that a break should be a minimum of 20 minutes. How come? That's how long it takes your body to process all the stress hormones and adrenaline and to actually calm down once you've been completely triggered by this. And most people find about an hour is enough. And if you recognize the signs of flooding early, it might not need to take that much time. So the quicker you take this break, the less time it will take to recover. Try not to let the break extend beyond 24 hours. He does say that it's okay to go to sleep without resolving an issue. He says sometimes rest is the best choice. However, he says don't let more than a day pass or it comes across as avoidance or punishment. All right, so talk about it. If you really need to, you could take a longer break. And this contradicts this. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. I still think that's very good advice from Scripture. But if you were really upset, it's not absolute. But try to resolve it as quickly as you can. But the main thing is you need to calm down. All right? Now, a whole bunch of don'ts. Do we have time for don'ts? I think we have time for don'ts. Avoid saying, honey, I think you're getting flooded. You should take a break. This comes across as blaming or patronizing, and your partner might feel judged or defensive. Instead, you could say, I think we both need to take a break. Let's pause and check back in an hour and keep talking. By the way, that first statement had to be said by a man. I guarantee it. All right? Don't try to sneak in a final word before you step away. You've been having this great debate, and as you walk out, you leave that one last burning line. No, don't do that. I've done it. It doesn't work. It only adds fuel to the fire, and it makes things worse, and probably takes longer to resolve the whole thing. Okay, so hold it in. Don't leave your partner in limbo. Return when you said you would. If you're still not ready to talk, then come back, let them know that, and agree on a new time. So reset the clock. We took 20 minutes, but I'm still really upset. Let's try again in an hour or ask for more time. You can simply say, I'm not feeling calm yet. Can we talk about this after dinner, after work, tomorrow morning? But disappearing without communication is unfair, even when emotions are high. And don't spend your time crafting arguments or reversal comebacks. You're still dwelling on the hurt, and it will take you longer to calm down, and it's just not helpful. Okay? Try to come back calm, centered, ready to connect, and resume the conflict in a positive way. So, he says you're making a wise choice to prevent saying or doing something you'll regret later, something that becomes much more likely if you stay in the conflict while you're overwhelmed. So it's just really dumb to stay in a conflict when you're flooded. You're going to say something stupid. They're going to say something stupid to you. It's going to make you mad. You're going to remember it 3 days later. No, don't do it. It's just the wrong thing to do. Take a break, calm down, and talk when you're ready. Harsh words that we say in a flooded state just create more damage that has to be repaired. The most helpful thing you can do is step away, give yourself time to rest mentally and physically, and offer your partner the same space and consideration. What about conflict styles? Volatile, you might assume, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. But remember, if they think that debating each other is just a big game, as long as they can keep it positive, it's okay. For them, they have to ask, has this become out of control? Is there genuine criticism, contempt, defensiveness? In that case, they probably have become flooded. All right, so they can become flooded. And when we're flooded, we need to think about our bodies. Every emotion we have shows up somewhere in our body. If you're at work and some person comes in and does something really stressful, you will feel it somewhere in your body. Like, oh, I feel that. I'm feeling really stressed. So you, after they leave, you take some deep breaths and you go get a coffee and you go talk to someone nice, but you can feel it somewhere. So if you pay attention to your body, you'll be able to tell when this is happening. There will be physiological symptoms. You don't need an AI. For validators, if there were two validators, they generally remain calm and constructive. So flooding is less common. But as I warned you before, when validators are in a crisis situation, they don't have experience with that level of problem. So they can still be triggered and become flooded. No couple is immune, especially if they're navigating a painful, high-stakes issue, all right? Avoidant, often sit at the other end of the spectrum. They're more prone to flooding quickly. So avoidant people will flood quickly, sometimes even at the first hint of conflict, if conflict even happens at all. So it's very easy for someone who's avoidant to be triggered into flooding. But if we know about this, we just take a break, calm down, come back, try again. Their reactions can escalate quickly, going from calm to overwhelming in an instant. This intense, sudden response may be one of the reasons avoidants tend to steer clear of conflict entirely. Okay, conflict's bad, don't like it, nope, don't want it. Okay, they easily become overwhelmed. Okay, solving the moment. So in the middle of a conflict, your goal doesn't need to be resolving the entire conflict. In fact, it's not a good idea even to try. Instead, focus on addressing the moment at hand. Ooh, that's wrong. Keep in mind, many of our conflicts are going to be what we call perpetual conflicts, conflicts that will never be resolved. They're deeper issues tied to the core of our personalities or life experiences that have wounded us somehow. So it's best to manage these with care and understanding rather than the goal of trying to resolve them. Recalibrate. So your goal isn't to win. How often have you been in a conflict where you just feel like, oh, they're trying to win, I'm trying to win, they're trying to win, I'm trying to win. Okay? No, give that up. It's not to convince your partner of your point of view. So remember, persuasion is at the very bottom. at the end. Maybe they'll agree, maybe they won't. It's not to solve the issue on the spot. And it's not even necessarily about reaching compromise. So the first thing is understanding, and compromise comes later. If it was to avoidance, they might constantly be jumping to compromise or even validators, but they don't understand each other. They don't know what's driving that. So understanding is more important. So focus on keeping a balance tipped towards the positive and away from the negative. If we allow that to get out of balance, it's just going to go south and be very painful. Okay? So even if we can't solve whatever the problem was, at least we can keep it in the positive. We won't at least regret what we said the next day, right? So, and he says, it's not only possible, but it's essential. Okay? We have to do this. It's the thing that will keep us in the happiness zone. Don't forget the magic ratio. So we're trying really hard to have a 5-to-1 ratio. The more intense the flooding gets, the more likely it is to spiral into the negative, and the harder it is to get out of. Hopefully we've kept our emotional bank account loaded with positives to buffer that. In the heat of the argument, make sure that we try to use supportive words, gestures, a respectful tone, maintain the ratio as much as we can. We talked a little bit about that already. Trying to steer the conflict towards the positive. So calm yourself when you feel overwhelmed. Focus on expressing your own feelings and needs in similar manner to the soft startup, rather than pointing fingers at your partner. Offer, notice, and receive repair attempts. So try to, if you make a mistake, try to own it and fix it. When you practice these 3 steps, your conflict naturally becomes more constructive, and you're more likely to maintain that essential balance of positive over negative reactions. And a reminder about the power of repair. The challenge is making a repair in the heat of conflict requires us to recognize that you've veered away from a healthy, compassionate exchange. So you recognize we're getting flooded, this is going south, I don't like the tone. We take a break, and then we're actively working to try to repair that. It really, when you're flooded, it's very hard to take responsibility for your part. That's why probably there's a lot of defensive behavior in people that are flooded, because the way out of defensiveness is our own responsibility. And then just a reminder, this happens to everyone. So a huge international study, 97% identified flooding as a significant challenge to their relationship. So this is an always problem in all kinds of relationships. Now, if we back up to my advice to the young couples at the beginning, take a break. That doesn't sound too hard, does it? And then if you add the nuances that he added about how to take a break, it just gives you a few more tools about how that kind of break activity could take place. Okay, 7:59. I didn't think I could do that. I was afraid I had too many slides. Okay, so my idea for your couple activity was I gave you this orange handout that says a script for a soft startup. And on that, there were examples of a harsh startup and a soft startup. And then a formula for how you would share needs in a way that would be helpful. So that just gives you a tool. And then on this bright orange one, I gave you a whole bunch of emotions I feel and a whole bunch of needs, and there is one typo, to know what you are thinking, not who plus you are thinking. But there's a whole bunch of needs there. What I like to suggest is that you try taking turns thinking of a need that you have that's connected to a feeling, and try to share that with your partner using this model of a soft startup. So you think of something, not what's on the page here. These are just ideas in case you're stuck. But think of something in your relationship that is it's an issue you would wanting to bring up. Think about how you would bring it up using a soft startup. And then try sharing that with each other. And then, just for fun, take a break and try the forgiveness inventory. Deceivingly worded here. It's actually a resentment inventory. So go down the page, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Then flip it over, and there's a key for just how much resentment you have in the relationship on the back page. So 2 things to do. Practice sharing a need with your partner, but you're trying to do so using this model of a soft startup. So that's why I gave you some feelings. I feel abandoned when you go out of town for 2 weeks with work. And I need da 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 da. So you're trying to put together a feeling with a need in this, using this kind of model. All right? So I guess it's actually a feeling, a problem, and a need. So think about something you'd like to share and take turns trying to say it with a soft startup, and then do this inventory, and you can just talk about that privately, see what comes up. Anytime you hear the words, "That's the 3rd time this week you ... that is resentment. Okay? So see how you score. And as always, these are just ideas. If there's something else you want to talk about, if you want to go have a coffee somewhere and talk there, feel free to do whatever you want. Okay?